The purpose of this video is to highlight a few more details about cover letters and to give you some tips to help you as you are working on revising and refining your own cover letter to help you be the most effective you can be. Cover letters are pretty straightforward. They're a very set genre. Which means that they have particular rules that they play by. It's not uncommon for a cover letter to sound a little bit formulaic, for it to have particular elements that are consistent from letter to letter. Where you can express your own personality is in the details that you choose to include and the style that you use to write. What you want to think about is the relationship between the cover letter and the resume. Your resume is that snapshot overview of your experience, where the cover letter offers a chance to provide more detail on 2 or 3 specific experiences that you've had. So where you can't really go into detail about your accomplishments in your resume, in your cover letter, you're able to highlight and expand upon projects you've worked on, different experiences that you have had that have influenced your understanding of a given topic, or just various details that you can provide, your accomplishments, your achievements, things that are hard to highlight in a concise way in a resume, but are definitely appropriate to go into more detail in a cover letter. So when you are approaching your cover letter, you want to think about what are 2 or 3 particular experiences, projects, achievements that you would like to highlight in order to really demonstrate the kind of employee you are. The other thing is that you want to think in terms of argument. You are creating an argument to the employer that says, hi, I am a qualified candidate. I would be good for this position for these particular reasons. So think about that persuasive appeal. How can you incorporate those rhetorical elements that we've been discussing into your cover letter to be an effective communicator here? It also demonstrates your communication ability. So for instance, if your job is looking for someone who can communicate well, and believe me, they all are, you can show them through your cover letter that you have the ability to write clearly and cleanly and communicate in a way that's appropriate and professional. So the cover letter accomplishes 4 tasks. It introduces you as a candidate. It explains your interest in the position. It highlights relevant and specific qualifications. This is where you'll go back and forth between your job ad and highlighting different qualifications to demonstrate that you are qualified for the position, or that you are at least worth having them bring you in for an interview to talk to you more. And then finally, it requests an interview. Those are the 4 big things that it should accomplish. If you miss one of these things, you risk the cover letter not hitting its target and you not getting the interview that you really want. The other thing is that it is what I'm calling a set genre. While cover letters do have that flexibility and adaptability that make it a living genre, it does have very particular rules. It has stylistic requirements. It has things that are consistent across the board for cover letters. If you deviate from these things or you write in a way that's not in line with the rules, your cover letter may not be as well received as you would want it to be. So you want to be really careful about where you fiddle with the rules and where you go off away from the guidelines a little bit. There's ways to play around with that to make it more appealing, but you really do want to follow the consistent rules that I'm going to offer to you. So here are the laws of the cover letter, so to speak. One is formatting. So you want to format appropriately. This includes that address block, the salutation, the date, and the signature. And I'll show you an example here that does those things in a minute. And then it has at least 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph is an introduction. In that paragraph, and these paragraphs are short, you want to state the position you're applying for. So give the title that is on the job advertisement that you have found. You want to talk about how you learned about it. And you will then want to give a sentence that's an overview of the kinds of things that you're going to be focusing on in the body of your letter, essentially your thesis statement. So your introduction might start out something like, Dear so-and-so, I'm writing to apply for the internship position in this department, which I learned about from broncojobs.com, or I learned about from the internship coordinator at my university. That would be the place where you might name drop. If you learn about a position from somebody who is known in the company, you might say, which I learned about from John Doe. And if they know who John Doe is, then they'll say, okay, great, fantastic. This person has some connections to our company. And then that's one sentence. And then you have a second sentence that might say something like, given my experience and education doing these things, and that's where you give some specific detail, I would be an excellent fit for this position. Again, there's a lot of variations that you can do from that, but that's the general gist of what you want to accomplish in that very first paragraph. The second paragraph, so those middle two paragraphs, again, depend on your own background. If you are applying for a position where the education is not the most important thing, or you have a lot of experience, you might have two paragraphs that essentially focus on different aspects of your experience. You might drop your education in there, but then very quickly move into your experience. So for instance, if you are a computer science person, you're getting a computer science degree, you might be going back to school because you learned a lot on the job, but you want to be able to have the credentials to back it up. So you might very quickly bridge from your education to your experience so that you can focus on the really cool things in the self-learning you've done instead of just talking about how you've gotten you're pursuing a degree. And so education and experience and discussing relevant to the position. Again, you don't need to list every single thing that's on your resume. The idea here is that you're highlighting a couple of achievements and you're going into more detail. The key here is to show, not tell. So don't just tell them, I am a good communicator. Show it. So instead of saying I'm a good communicator, you can say something, for instance, like, during a course project, I took on the role of project manager in which I did this and this and this. And then maybe you talk about how you were able to keep everybody, in line. So focus on specific details, show, don't tell. Again, they have your resume, which is the comprehensive list. This is your chance to highlight a few examples that are most relevant for what you're applying for. So if you find yourself just listing things that are on your resume, stop and think to yourself, what specific story can I tell? What examples can I give here? And then finally, you include a closing. This closing paragraph can do a number of things. The big thing you want it to do is to summarize your experience. So you essentially say, hey, here's what I talked about in the letter. This is why I would be a good fit for the position. And then you thank the reader and you indicate your availability for an interview. You might also mention something along the lines of more details available on the resume, that reference to the resume that the textbook talks about. Or you can point the reader to your LinkedIn profile if you want them to go look there for more information. So really quickly, I just want to go through a cover letter that a student wrote. So here you see, this is a cover letter. She opted not to use a letterhead, and so she just formats it very simply. So we have her address, the date, the address of the person she's writing to, and then dear Ms. Collins, and then you have a colon right here. The thing you want to keep in mind here is, I know the Career Center video said to use first names, but if for some reason it just really feels wrong to you because of your understanding of the culture of the profession that you're applying for, to use people's first names, and you can be relatively sure that this person is female, then consider saying dear Ms. Collins. It's easy to get into trouble with titles and with improper names. Just always opt for Ms. for women, Mr. for men, or if you can find out a little bit about them and make sure that they don't have a PhD or an MD or some other kind of title. You can be fine with using that. So I'll leave that up to your own judgment. So either way, if you decide to use a first name or the last name, I'm with you here. You can see here, she has her first paragraph. I'm writing to apply for a college internship position at and I changed this a little bit for her. So, you know, I'm writing to apply for the college internship position at the Wolf Education and Research Center as posted on your website. So she says what she's applying for and how she heard about it. My experience working with animals, people, and the outdoors, as well as my education and lifelong interest in wolves, will make me a valuable and effective intern to the Wolf Center. So here she says, I'm going to talk about my experiences working with people and outdoors, as well as my education. So she highlights these two big things that she's going to address in the body of her letter. Then she gets into the body of the letter. First, she begins with her education. Currently, I'm attending Boise State University, majoring in biology with a zoology emphasis. With this degree, I wish to pursue a career as a wildlife biologist who works with wolves. And then she goes into a particular story about where she became interested in working with wolves. Here, because this is an internship position, they're not, they're looking more for that interest versus, say, the particular classes that she took. But I would say for her, if she had taken a particular course where she worked on a project involving wolves, I would opt to highlight that project because it shows a level of knowledge and understanding that is a little different from a personal interest. But at the same time, she's being really careful here not to say, I have a passion for wolves, because that's telling instead of showing. Here she's trying to show that her interest in wolves is extensive and that she's actually pursued opportunities to learn more about wolves outside of the classroom as well as in the classroom. Her second paragraph goes into experiences, and here she talks about work and volunteer experience. Again, she doesn't have a ton of relevant work experience working with wolves in particular, but she has a lot of personal and professional experience dealing with pet and wildlife. And so she talks about that. She volunteered for the Canyon County Animal Shelter and the Idaho Humane Society just to say, hey, I'm familiar with animals. Here's the ways that I'm trying to bolster my education outside of the classroom, and in order to have this different experience. She also talks about a camp that she attended because they particularly were concerned that the people applying for this internship position would have outdoors experience and would be comfortable camping and hiking and essentially being outside for extended periods of time. And that's something that was really important for her to show. But again, she's showing this experience instead of telling it, if that makes sense. Then she has the final paragraph here. Because I believe in educating people about wolves in our environment, and this is a fragment, so she needed to revise this. Being able to obtain more knowledge and experience working with wolves would help me achieve my goal of becoming a wolf biologist to educate others and make a difference. So these two would need to be combined as one sentence. And then she thanks the reader. Thank you for your consideration. I'm available upon request for an interview, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. And then she signs her name. So these are all the elements that she wants to include in the cover letter. This is not the most perfect cover letter, but you can see that it follows the rules that I provide in really particular ways. There are some ways to deviate from these rules or to vary these rules. The Career Center video offers some ways as well as the textbook, but I just wanted to again highlight some of the ways that I want you to think about cover letters and how you can go about addressing these issues as you proceed through your own revisions this week. So thanks, and reach out if you have any questions.